right? So there's like double-digit percentages of the world's top AI labs or America's top AI labs
employees
employees that are like Chinese nationals or have ties to the Chinese mainland, right? So that's great. Why don't we build the Manhattan Project?
Yeah, it's really funny, right?
Like,
That's so stupid.
But it's also like the challenge is when you talk to people who actually, when you talk to people who actually have experience dealing with like CCP activity in this space, right? Like there's one story that we heard that is probably worth like relaying here. Is like this guy from an intelligence agency was saying like, hey, so there was this power outage out in Berkeley, California back in like 2019 or something. And the internet goes out across the whole campus. And so there's this dorm and like all of the Chinese students are freaking out because they have an obligation to do a time-based check-in and basically report back on everything they've seen and heard to basically a CCP handler type thing.
Right.
And if they don't, like, maybe your mother's insulin doesn't show up. Maybe your like brother's travel plans get denied. Maybe a family business gets shut down. Like there's the range of options that this massive CCP state coercion machine has. This is like, they've got internal like software for this. Like this is an institutionalized, like very well developed and efficient framework for just ratcheting up pressure on individuals overseas. And they believe the Chinese diaspora overseas belongs to them. If you look at like what the Chinese Communist Party writes in its written like public communications, they see like Chinese ethnicity as being a green. Like no one is a bigger victim of this than the Chinese people themselves who are abroad, who have made amazing contributions to American AI innovation. You just have to look at the names on the friggin' papers. It's like these guys are wicked. But the problem is we also have to look head on at this reality. Like you can't just be like, oh, I'm not going to say it because it makes me feel funny inside. Someone has to stand up and point out the obvious that if you're going to build a fucking Manhattan Project for superintelligence and the idea is to like be doing that when China is a key rival nation state actor, yeah, you're going to have to find a way to account for the personnel security side. Like at some point, someone's going to have to do something about that.
And it's like you can see they're hitting us right where we're weak, right? Like America's the place where you come and you remake yourself, like send us you're tired and you're hungry and you're poor. And
which is true and important.
It's true and important, but they're playing right off of that because they know that we just don't want to look at that problem. You know?
And Chinese nationals working on these things is just bananas. The fact they have to check in with the CCP.
Yeah.
And are they being monitored? I mean, how much can you monitor them? What do you know that they have? What equipment have they been given?
You can't constitutionally, right?
Yeah,
you
the
can't
best part, constitutionally, it's also you can't legally deny someone employment on that basis in a private company.
How can the United States compete? If you're thinking about all these different factors, you're thinking about espionage, people that are students from the CCP connected, contacting. You're talking about all the different network equipment that has third-party input. You could siphon off data. And then on top of that, state-funded. Everything is encouraged by the state, inexorably connected. You can't get away from it. You do what's best for the Chinese government.
Well, so step one is you got to stem the bleeding, right? So right now, OpenAI pumps out a new massive scaled AI model. You better believe that like the CCP has a really good chance that they're going to get their hands on that, right? So if all you do right now is you ratchet up capabilities, it's like that meme of like there's a motorboat or something and some guy who's like surfing behind and there's a string attaching them and the motorboat guy goes like, hurry up, like accelerate, they're catching up. That's kind of what's happening right now is we're helping them accelerate.
We're pulling them along basically.
Yeah, pulling them along. Now, I will say, like, over the last 6 months especially, where our focus has shifted is, like, how do we actually build, like, the secure data center? Like, what does it look like to actually lock this down? And also, crucially, you don't want the security measures to be so irritating and invasive that they slow down the progress. Like, there's this kind of dance that you have to do. So this is part of what was in the redacted version of the report, because we don't want to telegraph that necessarily, but there are ways that you can get a really good 80-20. Like there are ways that you can play with things that are already, built and have a lower risk of them having been compromised.
And look, a lot of the stuff as well that we're talking about, like big problems around China, a lot of this is like us just like tripping over our own feet and self-owning ourselves.
Yeah.
Because the reality is like the Chinese are trying to indigenize as fast as they can, totally true, but the gear that they're putting in their facilities, like the machines that actually like do this, like we talked about atomic patterning, 300 layer, the machines that do that for the most part are shipped in from the West, are shipped in from the Netherlands, shipped in from Japan, from us, from like allied countries. And the reason that's happening is like in many cases, you'll have this it's like honestly a little disgusting, but like the CEOs and executives of these companies will brief like the administration officials and say like, look, like if you guys like cut us off from China, from selling to China, like our business is going to suffer, like American jobs are going to suffer, and it's going to be really bad. And then a few weeks later, they turn around in their earnings calls and they go like, you know what, yeah, so we expect like export controls or whatever, but it's really not going to have a big impact on us. And the really fucked up part is if they lie to their shareholders on their earnings calls and their stock price goes down, their shareholders can sue them. If they lie to the administration on an issue of critical national security interest, fuck all happens to them.
Wow.
It's great incentives.
And this is, by the way, it's like one reason why it's so important that we not be constrained in our thinking about like we're going to build a Fort Knox. Like this is where the interactive, messy, adversarial environment is so important. You have to introduce consequence. Like you have to create a situation where they perceive that if they try to do an espionage operation or an intelligence operation, there will be consequences.